Hi, everybody, and welcome to the City to City Africa panel. We've been across the entire world so far as part of London Fintech Week, and we went from the Arab world to Asia to other parts of the Middle East, and now we're in Africa. So before we get started with today's panel on the fintech landscape in Africa, I wanted to allow Rajiv Babooram from Mauritius Economic Development Board to say a few words. Over to you, Rajiv.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rajiv Babooram. I'm delighted to take part in this panel session, and I'd like to thank Fintech Times for this wonderful opportunity to say a few words about fintech in Africa, and of course about Mauritius as well. I actually represent the Economic Development Board of Mauritius, which is the trade and investment promotion agency for the Mauritian government, responsible for business facilitation, country branding, and of course, we advise the Mauritian government on strategic planning and economic policies. As you know, Africa is considered as the next frontier of growth. It is home to 1.3 billion people with diverse cultures, each with its own unique languages, cultures, and traditions. From a fintech perspective, this represents significant opportunities as it is estimated that 80% of the people living in Africa do not have access to bank accounts. But increasingly, more and more Africans are having access to smartphones. As a matter of fact, 52% of the world's mobile phone transactions take place in Africa. Africa's fintech sector continues to attract attention globally. Many African countries have also accelerated their digital transformation strategies, including Mauritius, which has a vibrant fintech landscape. Just a few words about Mauritius. Most people tend to know Mauritius as a tourist destination, but Mauritius is more than just a tourist destination. Today, we are a fully diversified economy, and Mauritius has accelerated its move to embrace digitalization. So without taking too much time, I hope that you will enjoy today's panel. And it's good to see that you've got some great panelists today across the African continent that have some wonderful insights to share with you all. I will now hand it back to the moderator of today's panel. Richie, over to you. Thank you very much.
Welcome to the City to City Africa panel today. I'm here with a delighted group of panelists from across the African continent to discuss fintech in Africa. So before we get started, I wanted to introduce the panelists today. First off, we have Dr. Segun Aina, who's the president of the Africa Fintech Network. Dr. Segun, do you quickly want to elaborate about Africa Fintech Network and yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great to be here. The African Fintech Network is a platform that unites African fintech leaders, organizations, and anybody that have anything to do with fintech, because it's made up of national fintech associations of the various countries in Africa. I know each of these fintech associations in those countries have members that play in different aspects of fintech, both on the supply side and the demand side. I mean, technology companies, startups, banks, insurance companies, even educational institutions, and so on. So it's an ecosystem. So we represent fintech ecosystems in 33 countries in Africa right now. We started with 7 about 3 years ago when we started up. And then by next year, we want to have reached at least 50 countries in Africa so that we can working together, exchange ideas, and grow fintech development in Africa and use this as the voice of fintech for Africa to the outside world.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Now to Nigeria, I wanted to introduce Dr. Olayinka or Yinka David West, who's the Associate Dean and Professor at the Lagos Business School. Dr. Yinka, do you want to elaborate on yourself?
Great. Thank you, Richie, and it's great to be here. As Richie mentioned, I'm a professor of information systems at the Lagos Business School, but I think my fame is, or my notoriety comes from being a DFS advocate, especially seeking at financial inclusion initiatives. I also sit as a governing council member of the Fintech Association of Nigeria. Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. Now we head to Southern Africa and head over to Lebo in South Africa. Lebo Mokgabudi, who's the CEO of Eaglequest Africa. Lebo, do you want to elaborate as well about yourself?
Thanks, Richie. And good morning or good afternoon, depending on where people are from. So my name is Lebo Mokgabudi, as you've said, a payments professional that has commercialized mobile money as well as digital financial solutions in multiple African markets. And right now offering fintech and financial inclusion services to banks, mobile network operators, as well as development funding institutions in South Africa, in Southern Africa, and the rest of the continent. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Now we head over to East Africa in Kenya, where we have Ali Hussein, who's the CEO of Kenya Association of Fintechs. Ali, do you want to elaborate about the association and yourself?
Yes, Ali Hussein is my name, and I chair the Association of Fintechs in Kenya. It's a fairly new association. We currently have about 65 members. Of course, Nairobi and Eastern Africa is a very vibrant fintech ecosystem, driven for many years by the success of M-Pesa. But we are now starting to see a lot of traction in the space. We also have what we call a de facto open banking ecosystem already starting to happen, despite the fact that there are no regulatory structures in place. So, I mean, interesting times for fintech in East Africa, still very, very early days. Happy to be here, Richie.
We're happy to have you as well. Thank you. And last but not least, all the way in the Indian Ocean is Mauritius. So Michal Szymanski is the CEO of Mauritius Fintech Hub. Do you want to elaborate as well about Mauritius Fintech Hub and yourself?
Perfect. Thanks so much, Richie, and good evening, everybody. Well, good evening from Mauritius. Basically, our mandate is with the official Mauritius Fintech Association with the goal of not only building and promoting and consolidating the local fintech ecosystem within Mauritius as a jurisdiction, but also on the greater part of the continent through open collaborations and getting things done. So serving the ecosystems locally and then branching out. And we love being part of the African Fintech Network because it aligns with our ethos of only together we can showcase the beauty of African fintechs to the rest of the world.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Now let's get into the panel discussion. So my first question is, for those who, tuning in, most are from across the world, from London and beyond, how can you describe the current state of fintech in Africa, as a whole, and specifically in your part of Africa? So Dr. Segun, as you're the African Fintech Network, can we hear from you quickly in terms of, like a broader, to explain it to somebody in terms of the state of fintech in Africa?
Yes, as you probably know, the fintech buzzword became very popular in the last 5 or 6 years, even though we've been doing a lot of fintechs for many years. But in the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of growth, particularly in Africa. We've seen a lot of attention in Africa by investors from outside of Africa wanting to invest. We have seen development of those companies that were 5, 6 years ago that were startups, that were just starting, and now today have become unicorns. So we no longer call them fintech startups, we're now calling them fintech incumbents because they have grown from being a startup to becoming the likes of Cellulant, the likes of Flutterwave, the likes of Paga, Paystack, Interswitch, and so on and so forth. So these are making it possible to attract more investors to the African space, making it possible to attract to young talents to see the possibilities that Africa can offer. And with the demography that we have, some of the young population and some of the challenges, peculiar challenges that we have, we've seen a lot more attention, by people wanting to solve peculiar African challenges with unique solutions. So these are very, very interesting times for fintech in Africa, looking at where we've been coming from in the past 6 years or so to where we are today. There's a lot of success stories, and we've seen movement from concentration in the payment environment now to other aspects of finance and financial services. So we are so happy at what is going on, and there's a lot of process and very, very bright future for the fintech ecosystem in Africa, and the ability to attract large funds, investable funds to grow the market and to solve problem of financial inclusion, economic inclusion, and developing Africa as a whole. Thank you.
Thanks. Dr. Yinka, you're nodding your head a lot. So let's spotlight West Africa. What's going on there? Is it similar to what Dr. Segun said, or do you have something different to add?
It's similar, but I think let me just also bring in the fact that West Africa has Anglophone and Francophone Western African. The Anglophone countries are more of a united bloc. The Francophone countries are more of a united bloc and work directly with Paris and France. So in terms of the West African countries, I think Nigeria is the largest market, of course, and Nigeria sort of is your rite of passage into anything in Africa in general. And what we've seen so far is mobile is really the preferred medium, the channel and the preferred tool. So we'll call ourselves a mobile first market. And then again, what like Dr. Aina said, the investment flows are also one thing we need to be mindful of. But what we've realized is even the envelope size wise, they're not as big as what we see in Latin America and other markets. And even within Nigeria, I think Ali and Kenya get more than some of the Nigerian fintechs that we see from an envelope size perspective. Dr. Aina had mentioned the issue about payments had been sort of foundational for entry into the fintech space, but we're now beginning to see the evolution of fintech, not just within the financial services vertical ecosystem, but also enabling other ecosystems like agriculture, education, to ensure that there's that multiplier effect that we can get from fintechs. The other issue is, yes, we have the talent in terms of the youth demographic, but then again, it's really how are we intentionally developing and building the capacity to support the ecosystem and to grow the ecosystem. And because talent is mobile, and COVID has made talent a bit more mobile, so people can be resident anywhere and working anywhere else in the world without having to emigrate. So we need to be more intentional and mindful about it. And finally, I think the thing for African countries is how do we retain these as African businesses? So they start off as African businesses, but eventually they are sort of licensed in other countries, and then they become American companies, Canadian companies, and things like that. So we also need to be intentional in retaining the talent, the knowledge, the intellectual capital, all on the continent as well. Thank you.
You brought up a very good point, and thank you for that. And now, I mean, I saw Michal nodding his head a lot. So I want to bring it to East Africa now. So both Ali and Michal, you guys could tag team here in terms of where you see, kind of your point of view. So Ali, if you want to begin, and then Michal, you can also add as well after.
So, East Africa, M-Pesa has had a sort of outsized role and influence in the fintech ecosystem. I would actually say that M-Pesa is probably the first Pan-African fintech. And what has happened over the last couple of years is that we have started seeing M-Pesa sort of evolve to become a new rail. Mobile is really the new rails. So if you look at some of the products that M-Pesa and Safaricom have launched, products like Lipa na M-Pesa, that's in Kiswahili in English means pay via M-Pesa, merchant payments, that has become bigger than all debit and credit cards put together, like 10x. What is also super interesting is that if you are on a mobile banking platform, let's say Bank ABC in Kenya, and you want to make a transfer, it's become so seamless, but that integration and that interconnection between mobile money and banking services has become so ubiquitous in Kenya that you don't even think about it. So as you have your drop-down menu, I want to send money to Richie, M-Pesa is next to all the banks. So it's a click away. You don't really have to go out of your banking app to be able to. So there are plus and minuses around that. The plus is obviously the interoperability has become, we don't even think about it anymore. The minus is that M-Pesa has 98.5% of the mobile money market in Kenya. Yet you have a situation where, despite the success of M-Pesa, 85% of transactions are still in cash. I mean, I was looking at some reports just a few days ago. I was having a chat with a visa country manager for Kenya, Eva, and I was astounded and shocked by how minuscule card payments are in Kenya. 2%. 2% card payments. So we have evolved into become truly a mobile-first economy as far as fintech is concerned. But what I can say and what is exciting is that it's still very early days.
Mm. And feel free to send money to me, by the way, because you said you were going to do that. So by all means, you can send money to Richie. So now I'm going to send this.
I hope you have an M-Pesa account. I will do that immediately.
I will download it just to get it. So speaking of sending something, I'm going to.
By the way, M-Pesa has even just launched M-Pesa Global, which basically means actually I could actually possibly send you money from my M-Pesa account.
Okay. I'll keep you up on that. Yeah. So speaking of sending,
Please
I'll send
do.
the spotlight
Please
now. I'll send the spotlight now to Michal.
Please do.
Perfect.
Michal, do you want to add to that with East Africa?
Sure thing. And Africa as a whole, I think the type of innovations that we're seeing in Africa are world class. The digitalization of the financial services space has had a massive impact on the continent. You know, in your more first world or developed countries out there, people have some form of track records, they have some form of credit history, and yet on the continent, a lot of people are still excluded because they lack that as a resource to get access to financial products. But also the education or the financial inclusion has been missing. So as everybody, all the other panelists has said, over the last 5 to 7 years, we're seeing that the adoption of this technology really empower the consumers on the ground and give them a real choice with their lives. You know, personally on my side, we still judge too much as human beings by how many zeros we have in our bank accounts. I think the whole financial model is flawed. I think the fact that we exclude people out of the formal digital economy because of that as a blocker is not human in itself. So the digitalization of the space on the continent, I think, is empowering the consumers on the ground and the people on the ground to have more choice, you know, and there's a lot of success stories, you know, you across the continent, and I know we're going to probably touch on it, but in some instances, the user-centered innovations, the fintech innovations, and somebody alluded to this fact earlier, fintech is an enabler. Right? You know, just using technology, financial services space, whatever industry you're in, whether it's fishing, mining, or engineering, you need to move money from A to B unless you're not in a capitalistic driven economy, right? Which is nowhere on this planet. It's actually everywhere. So, you know, so this is what fintech has had. We're hearing amazing success stories, for example, small traders in some African countries, you know, using crypto to pay their suppliers because of the currency volatility in our own countries. We're seeing financial technologies being used in refugee camps or, you know, areas that are not serviced by the formal financial sector, but are empowering people to take control back of their lives. So what I feel that the continent has to offer is beautiful innovations. We're seeing the adoption of those innovations. We're seeing a lot of challenges on the ground because we have our own unique set of challenges. You know, 54 different countries, we all have a lot of different unique challenges, but I think technology is allowing us to be able to reach and communicate to the people on the ground and make them feel like they're back in part of the digital economy that we want to move forward towards.
Thanks for that. And last but not least, we go to South Africa, Southern Africa. Lebo, what do you have to say?
Sure. So South Africa is a highly banked market with 17 banks. But what's really unique, there's a highly banked market and people have bank accounts. 80% of our adults have bank accounts. Right. But what makes it unique is that even in that type of an environment with a formal financial services infrastructure, you still have high transaction fees, right? The fees within the banks are really, really expensive. Withdrawal fees, transaction fees are really, really high. And you find people actually withdrawing their funds from their accounts. So it's still a high cash economy. Most people open bank accounts because of their salaries and to receive government payouts or subsidies, government subsidies, and they really withdraw that money, right? So it's still a highly cash economy. And also, even with those banks, is that it's really hard for a small business to access any services, any affordable services. So to access credit, access insurance, or even savings products for a small business is almost impossible. So those barriers then create opportunities, right? You also find in South Africa that with this formal infrastructure or formal financial services, that it's not necessarily relevant for foreigners. So what we've also seen is that foreigners, as well as foreign business owners, struggle to access financial services. And with all those barriers that I've mentioned, then presents opportunities. So what we've seen in the past couple of years is that a rising of challenger banks, that are mitigating these barriers. So we have a variety of challenger banks like Time Bank, Discovery Bank, several challenger banks that are offering solutions that are cheaper, zero-rated fees at some point, with some of them like Better Bank, not using branches. And we're also seeing with the rise of digital consumers, we're seeing a lot of solutions that are digital first. Right, so we're seeing fintech innovations that are digital first solutions, such as offering digital first insurance. A lot of fintechs in the digital insurance space, such as Pineapple, Naked Insurance. We're also seeing a rise of fintech companies that are offering solutions to small businesses, right? So companies that are offering small businesses payment solutions, such as Yoko, or even companies that offer credit, so SME credit. And really what those companies are doing are leveraging alternative data to offer these credit solutions and really offering small businesses from an informal trader to a small business or a medium-sized business credit solutions. Companies such as Lulalend offer a small business credit solution only after 12 months of trading. Another aspect in South Africa is the inclusion side, right? South Africa is parallel economies. I like to say it's really parallel economies where you still have a highly, a market that is not included within the financial services market. And, the area of, we're seeing more innovations now that actually enable financial inclusion and specifically financial health. So we're seeing a rise of solutions for informal traders in the township economy. And, with COVID, it accelerated the need for digital commerce solutions and digital payment solutions within the township economy, as well as credit solutions for informal traders, which is fantastic. And then lastly, it's also embedded finance solutions. So we've seen, embedded finance solutions in other verticals or other industries, such as health. So we're seeing a lot of medical insurance products and health insurance products, even for low-income workers who previously could not access health insurance. We're seeing a lot of that, as well as solutions for the gig workers, right? Enabling a plumber or, a gig worker to access either payment solutions, to accept digital payment solutions, or even insurance. So that's also fantastic. So that's really been the evolution of fintech in South Africa, and then also these embedded solutions. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you for that. And you kind of touched upon, which was part of my next question, was converting challenges to opportunities. And also Michal and Ali, you guys mentioned it. So I want to send it to the doctors here. So Dr. Yinka and Dr. Segun, from your point of view, I mean, because Dr. Yinka, you said earlier about the brain drain issue and the best of Africa often leaves and becomes American or whatnot. Can you elaborate more, both of you, starting off with you and then Dr. Segun, in terms of that converting other challenges into opportunities in the African continent?
Okay, so I think that when we look at the fintech talent space, a lot of the young people we have been self-taught. And so what that means is that they're either learning online or learning just with books and things like that. So that also goes back into our education system. How do we ensure that our curriculum is appropriate and fit for purpose for the new industrial revolution that we're going into, and the future of work, and the whole idea of reskilling and retooling our industries and our workforce. And I think that on the positive side as well, you can think of that as when Nigerians are working internationally, there's also that opportunity of foreign direct investments, which also means that the country can earn more money through the investment and direct investments coming in through wages and labor. But again, what a lot of companies have been doing on the talent side is also trying to backward integrate into building their own talent pools. And this also now adds to their cost. It increases the cost of production, and it also adds to their retention worries, because when you spend 18 to 24 months developing the talent you need, and then in another year that person's off and out to another business, that really creates that churn and that cycle. So, but then again, some other companies are now doing, Agala started doing that in terms of building the talent pool for the workforce, and some other companies are doing that as well now in the environment. Decagon is doing that, but it's just about how do we ensure that we can sustain it, because by the time you look at the industries we need to support, the problems we need to work with, we need that local talent that's built ground up organically. So we need long-term and short-term and long-term solutions to addressing the curriculum issues in our education institutions, and really rethinking how we teach technology, how we teach people about using and appreciating and adopting technology in general. And I'll stop there. I have another challenge later on after Dr. Aina has chimed in.
Yes.
Go ahead, Doctor.
I agree fully with what Professor Dubuet has said, but the hope is that with the generation, Y, particularly generation Z, that are on now, who are digital natives, I think we are seeing a new crop of African talents who are embracing technology, who are embracing innovation, and who gives a lot of hope for the future. But that does not underrate the need for a focus, really looking at the educational system, and for those in the working class today, how to can do a lot of reskilling and upskilling of knowledge. But the other aspect that you mentioned I want to talk about is about the ownership, the foreign ownership of some of the most successful companies in Africa. Yes, historically, most of the funding that are coming into fintechs, because a few years ago, if you ask a startup in Africa, what is your number one pain point, they will tell you it's funding. But today, funding is no longer the number one pain point, because funding issues have been resolved by way of a lot of inflows coming from abroad. But even local funds are now being created. So the solution to ensuring we keep the market and we keep the benefits within Africa is to create local funds. A lot of angel investment funds are coming up. A lot of countries and organizations are creating innovation funds. We should provide the funding and ensure that these companies remain African entities so that Africa can benefit from it. The major challenge today is about regulation in most African countries, the issue of regulation and so on and so forth. But the good news is that regulators are now addressing their minds to the need to, because they have seen what has happened in other countries that this has not been a problem. Look at Singapore, for instance, with the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Look at UK, for instance, the Financial Conduct Authority. I mean, the last 2 or 3 weeks I've spoken to regulators in Botswana. Tomorrow I'm making presentations to regulators in Nigeria. We're talking to regulators in the other parts, Ghana, and so on and so forth. They are now more positive. They are now looking at how they can advance and promote innovation, how they can be supportive rather than create bottlenecks in the process. And so we are seeing a lot of sandboxes that have been created by regulators. Those are having innovation labs and creating stuff. So I think some of these, like I said, there are challenges, but those challenges have been addressed, and we are seeing it, and we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
Michal, you were nodding your head a lot, so yes, you want to respond to this?
Both our doctors, I feel, hit the nail on the head. Outside of medicine, the financial industry is the second most regulated industry out there in the world, right? The safety of moving money across the board. So regulation, if you talk to any fintech around the world right now, they will tell you I have 2 main challenges, and the same goes in Africa. One is regulation, right? But that can be another session for 3 days in a row. But the second one I feel is talent. The feedback we are getting, it's not only an Africa problem, but it's a global problem. We're not getting enough coders and good quality coders that are work ready from day one. A lot of companies are spending a lot to train the what's coming out of the university up to a level that they need them to be, and that's putting a stress on the education system. And in Africa, we're seeing a lot of academies using an agile, short and agile approach to solve and address the problem of 6 months courses, boot camps, etc. But it's a big problem, whether you talk to any incumbent or a startup. I mean, to give you a story, I was talking to one of the startups today who've grown 400% a quarter on year. In other words, 400% very, very quickly. Today, their biggest challenge right now is they can't find the people. They're starting to employ people in South America. Because of you can work from anywhere. Technology allows you to work from anywhere, right? But why are we not employing Africans? Why are we having to look outside of Africa to sort our own challenges? So across the globe, the nature of work is changing. Even when we chat to local universities, Mauritius, coming out with a CA or accounting degree isn't worth much anymore, right? If you don't understand the technology aspect of it, what value are you going to add? You're just breeding young generation that's actually outdated by the time they enter the workforce. So combining various fields such as finance and technology at a university level and upskilling those guys and vice versa. So giving the technology students an understanding of finance not only will bring better solutions, but make sure that the youth are actually ready from day one. So it's I'm agreeing with both doctors. I think it's a massive opportunity. The biggest two challenges are regulation and capacity. Even Cape Town, who I know are putting out 10,000 students a year. AWS is based there, headquarters of big tech firms. They're not keeping up with demand. They cannot produce techies quick enough. And if you look at Revolut and Monzo and all of these bigger kind of organizations, you don't have 90% accountants anymore. You have 60 to 70% coders in a bank, right? So the future of work in this space is changing. We've got to make sure that the youth are prepared and with the right skills to be able to let these companies scale and grow. Otherwise, our regulation will be second nature, and talent will be the number one blocker to growth.
Ali and Lebo, do you want to quickly respond to that?
So I think to just add on to what my colleagues have said, for me, one of the things that I have noticed in the last year or so, especially because of the pandemic, I'm seeing a lot more collaboration between startups and fintechs across Africa. So I am an investor in a number of startups, and a number of them are hiring talent from Nigeria. Nigerians are hiring talent from Kenya. South Africans are hiring talent from Kenya, and vice versa. And I think this is a beautiful thing, because Africans, we have never really learned how to do business with each other. And it's taking the startups to teach us old geezers on how to do it. And that's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Now, the other thing, from a regulatory perspective, we need to borrow from some of the, I wouldn't say more developed, because I honestly believe to my brother from Mauritius, and honestly believe that our ecosystem is a lot more innovative than any other place in the world. You are starting to see African cities up there. The one thing that I think the formation of the Africa FinTech Network has started is a movement across Africa to understand and appreciate the importance of FinTech. I think the next stage would be, the next level would be to bring together all players, because this is an ecosystem. We as FinTechs cannot operate on an island. Bankers cannot operate on an island. Regulators cannot operate on an island. We need to come together for the betterment of this continent and say, what are the major challenges? What is it that you want this startup to do? If you are if you are putting a startup on the same level from a regulatory perspective to Google or to EcoBank or to one of the big banks, Stan Bank, it's an unfair advantage, because startups will never have the level of resources that these big players would have. Hence, the associations becoming super critical to ensure that we level the playing field. And the role that the Africa Fintech Network, Dr. Segun and team are playing, I mean, we just simply cannot understate or overstate the role that the network is playing, and it's going to play going forward. Lastly, my favorite topic. I always say, when we are having conversations around policy and regulation, you must have a seat at the table. And the Africa Fintech Network and the associations allied to it are starting to ensure that we have that seat at the table. Because my friend and my friends, if you don't have a seat at the table at a restaurant, you are two things. You're either serving the meal or you're on the menu, and you don't want to be either.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said, and good, and well done to the Africa Fintech Network and everything. I wanna just do the time because we're slowly coming to the end. Lebo, do you want to quickly comment? And I have a question as well for you, Lebo. You can kick off. Is just, do you think Africa can be a leader in fintech on a global scale, assuming we've addressed the challenges, they're being met, the start of collaboration in the continent, assuming that all happens, do you think Africa can be a leader in fintech on a global stage? Lebo.
Leave me with the hardest question, but that's fine.
Best for last.
Yes, I do think Africa can be a leader on the global stage for a couple of reasons. The first thing, because of the lack of financial services infrastructure, Africa has leapfrogged and really started with digital first solutions, right, from day one. Most of the fintech solutions in Africa have actually been digital first, mobile only solutions, and leapfrogged that. So you find digital insurance, digital savings products, digital investment products, even cryptocurrency, products for millennials. You find inclusive products, products for farmers as well, products in other verticals, a lot of them in agriculture, across West Africa has a lot of those solutions, in agriculture. And then also, Kenya being a great example, because they have the infrastructure of M-Pesa, then they've layered it on with a whole lot of products and services that have leveraged M-Pesa, of course. And, you've seen innovations in, solar energy, in renewable energy, so many other verticals, even education, payments for education services is all digital first. And that's all in the African continent, right? So it's leapfrog that, and definitely other emerging markets such as Latin America, Indonesia, Asia can definitely learn from that. And you're seeing that a lot of, these markets are actually learning from Africa, right? When it comes to these fintech innovations. Another thing that you're seeing is because of the regulatory barriers that have been spoken about from my other colleagues, regulatory barrier, the one regulatory barrier is that to do a Pan-African solution is really difficult, because you almost have to register and get a license in every other market, right? But that's the opportunity within that. What's happening is that we're seeing a lot of partnerships. That it's in a way forced a lot of fintechs to partner with banks or partner with larger corporates who already have a license, right? So you're seeing a lot of people partnering with somebody who already has a license, and those partnership solutions can also, lead in other markets, right? And the last thing is that what I've also started to see is a lot of startups are merging, in order to grow across markets. I mean, ZPay is a great example, from Ghana, and then, merging with another solution in Zambia. So you're seeing a lot of mergers and acquisitions of startups actually partnering and working together, which is also fantastic, right? So working together, and which is the quickest way to become, a Pan-African solution. And then the last thing, so I did say last, but the last thing is talent. So I know, one of my colleagues talked about talent being a challenge, but I also think actually South Africa being one, because of the financial services infrastructure and the market here, there is a lot of fintech talent in South Africa specifically. And also what we found but this is unique to South Africa, is that because of the developed sort of nature of the South African market, that a lot of the fintech startups in South Africa tend to be exported to other developed markets. So we've seen a lot of fintech startups like Fintech Chatbot and other fintech startups in South Africa exporting to the US and the UK, and growing into those markets. So that also becomes an opportunity.
That was well said. Thank you for that. And I want to end it now because of time. So I'm going to give each of you 15 seconds to sum up in terms of, for the audience tuning in, as to why Africa, why my country, and just to your final thoughts in general, just very brief. Yeah. So we'll start off with Michal.
Oh, wow, no pressure. I'm going to spend my 15 seconds saying Lebo should be president of Africa. My second part of that is 9,057% agree with her. The fintech innovations coming out of Africa are user-centered. They're world-class. They're better than the East and the West because of all the points mentioned above, but because for me, it's also about purpose. In Africa, I had the pleasure of working with numerous countries around the world, entrepreneurs. People start businesses of helping somebody else on the ground, whether it's their family members or community. We forget about the scalability and the sustainability aspect, but it's a different mindset to starting a company to make money, and then you can be a philanthropist and give back to the world. So that's why I believe that this continent will be the leader in this space in the future. Thank you.
Excellent. Dr. Yinka.
Okay, so I thank you. And you see, what I see here is that Africa is already a game changer. We're not becoming one, we're already there. And I think Michal said this as well. But when you think about the intersectionality of 4 value chains, financial services, digital, innovation, and venturing, we're resilient, right? We know how to carry things forward. We're failing fast and failing forward. And I think that's the story of Africa. So where you see, there's already Pan-African stories that Lebo mentioned. There's already a lot of Nigerian companies that have been working outside of different African markets for the last 10 years. So it's just about how do we coordinate all this energy? How, it's all fragmented in little pockets and pieces. So maybe the African FinTech Network and each of the associations coordinate this energy, and then we can use it as a bigger force. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Ali, really quick, final thoughts?
So for me, the question is not, can Africa become a fintech leader? Africa is already a fintech leader. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt about it. If you want to look at the most current rankings from Fintechsable, you have 3 or 4 African cities already there: Lagos, Nairobi, I think Cape Town, Mauritius. We are already there. I think the issue that needs to be addressed is 3-pronged. Policy more than regulation, because remember that policy feeds from regulation. Rather, regulation feeds from policy. So we must address it at the policy level, even as we address regulation. Funding is not necessarily a problem as it was before, but where I'm sitting, I think we need a lot more homegrown funding. For some reason, us Africans are so focused on land and real estate. And that's something that we need to just get out of our ecosystem and start thinking about real estate. Yeah, so great opportunities going forward across the continent. And we really look forward to be participating in that growth and not just be a spectator or be on the menu, so to speak.
Thank you for that. And unless if President Lebo has any final comments, because your previous one was kind of like the ending. Unless if you had any, President Lebo, I wanted to actually hand it over to Dr. Segun.
I'll be
unless if Lebo had anything.
2 things quickly. Just two things. I think the one, when it comes to regulations, I know regulation has come up a lot as a barrier, but I think us as fintech professionals or professionals in the fintech industry is to work together with the regulators, right? To educate, to capacity build, and work together with the regulators. So silos will not, help us to work together with the regulators to actually enable them to build policies that are enabling for fintech across the continent. Another thing is fintech solutions or innovations for SMEs. We've largely focused on the consumer or individuals, and I think the opportunity for the next 5 years is the SMEs, which, as we know, is the fuel engine of this continent. That's all.
Thank you. And last but not least, I wanted to hand the torch to you, Dr. Segun, from the African Fintech Network, to say the final things. I think it's really appropriate that you do.
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, I've listened to my colleagues. You've gotten the best of the best from Africa in terms of the people that you are choosing to speak on the category A leaders of fintech in Africa. Africa is already there. I agree with them. A lot of companies that started a few years ago are now growing and moving on to other parts of the world. I know a lot of African companies that are now moving to Europe, some are moving to Latin America, and they are doing very, very well. We also have a lot of Africans even living outside of Africa that are producing, very, very, valuable products that are being used across the world. Number two is Africa offers a lot of opportunities, and those opportunities continue to open up. We have the African Free Continental Trade Area, which is supposed to bring trade together within Africa. It's creating a new line of fintech business called trade technology. You see a lot of things happening now in that area. With an economy of $3.4 trillion, that is something that fintech that will grow the fintech community in Africa. And the third point is that either though people have always seen Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya as the go-to places when you talk about investment and so forth. With the African Fintech Network coming on, we have now opening up other countries in Africa because talents are born everywhere in Africa. No matter whether you are small or big. I mean, we have seen countries like Mauritius, Uganda, Botswana, Tanzania, Rwanda coming up now strongly in terms of influence and activities in the fintech. And that's what we have for. Ali talk about coordination of all life forces, and that's why we are there as African Fintech Network to innovate together, advance as one, and create wealth and a better future for Africa and Africans. Thank you very much.
And thank you again, panelists, and enjoy the rest of the City segment as part of Fintech Week London. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure. Thank you, guys.